Huh.
Yep, I do. There we go. Now it should be on Patreon. All right. Good, 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 good. Close that. Close that. Yep. We are now live. Oh, there we go. All right. Sorry about that, guys. I'm still working out the squirrels. Now, for the meat of the show, I am excited about the future, but I am worried about the future. Not because of the revelation of truth, it's the reaction from the public. Because I was sitting here watching local TV last night, and I saw an ad for the Wounded Warriors Foundation. And if you don't get emotional, or if it doesn't hit you right in the feels watching the Wounded Warriors ad, of these these soldiers that were wounded in Iraq, in Afghanistan, all for a lie, all for an agenda, all for a created series of events to get the world aligned with the New World Order agenda. There was no need for the Afghanistan war. There was no need for invading Iran or Iraq. There was no need for any of this. These were wars where, like 9/11, we all know 9/11 was bullshit. All you got to do is look at Building 7. That that's it. If you can explain Trade Center Building 7 collapsed a block away, never hit by anything, and basically collapsed in on itself. And I heard someone in mainstream media say it collapsed because of structural empathy. Like the building looked over at the Twin Towers and went, in solidarity with you, too, I'm coming down. That's not how buildings work. They don't have empathy. We've been lied to so much, and yet we when this all is exposed, I I almost wonder how any federal government is going to retain any type of legitimacy. Like, the only way it works is if it gets so small it's irrelevant, because no one is going to trust anything that government says. No one's going to want or even apply any legitimacy of anything to the federal government, which maybe is a good thing.
Well,
Maybe
I think there are some that would, and those are the ones that are waiting for the handout. Those are the ones that want to be on the rolls. Those are the ones that embrace the notion of being an indentured constituent. They'll
yeah,
be
but
fine with
are
that.
there enough of those?
Well, it's this, the takers of the social programs, the social services, those who want free medical, those who want free college are.
Yeah, but
I don't know what the numbers are.
the criminality, the treason, the fraud.
What's fraud among friends? What's a little treason here and there? I mean,
what happens when the majority of Americans understand that our government let 9/11 happen and
right.
the CIA was maneuvering the players towards it? They wanted the attack. They knew it was coming. We already know they knew it was coming. And they heard the chatter. They knew it was coming. Hell, Jeffrey Epstein was training the pilots in Florida. And Jeffrey Epstein was a 100% full-on CIA asset at the time. That's why the charges in Florida were reduced, because the guy said he said, I had to lessen the charges because of the relationship of Jeffrey and the CIA. He was an asset of the CIA.
Sorry, I'm trying to bring in
Florida were reduced.
D Live.
Because if you mute that.
Yeah, I'm out.
All right. We're living in a world where the lies are being exposed, and this is the moment whenever the husband breaks and just goes, let me tell you everything. And then it's just an onslaught of truth that destroys the trust. I mean, at what point do you go, World War I was a lie, World War II, a lie, Vietnam War, a lie, the Korean War, a lie. Every war we've been in that we thought was just a patriotic movement and just out there trying to fight the good fight for the freedom. All of the marketing campaigns were a lie. I mean, think about it, Patrick. Your father was in World War II. He risked his life for a lie. And I mean, how does that affect the mentality of the average American who, now luckily for you, your father, lived, but what about the children whose fathers who didn't live, and all the people that were lost in the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, all these wars that were just meant to align the global government structure in line with the progressive movement.
Somebody's asking what was the lie?
What was the lie? The lie was, well, World War II. The lie was that 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 there were genuine influences internal in Germany, and that these were grassroots originated wars, that some grassroots entity had actually gained enough support through wrongs that they were going through to launch into a world war. And there's no way mathematically that a world war was even possible without the false flags. You know, Pearl Harbor. We have evidence that Churchill and
Roosevelt.
What was the president?
Roosevelt.
Roosevelt met on a ship, and they basically planned out Pearl Harbor because Roosevelt's son was there and wrote it in his diary that his father and Churchill said they needed an event to shift the American people's perception where they would be pro intervention.
And not only that, though, the economic pressure that was being put on Japan, they were being boycotted in terms of access to steel, rubber, petroleum. They were being locked out of markets. Their economics was falling apart. And the only way that they could get it back was to forcibly go in and take over the territories that provided those resources.
Yep. They needed the raw materials. And it was Roosevelt working with Churchill and some of the other progressive leadership over in Great Britain that had set up the economic situation where China was encouraged to hit Hawaii. That it's there's no way you can tell me that
China or Japan.
I'm sorry, Japan. There's no way you can tell me that Hawaii and Pearl Harbor, all of a sudden, there's planes just attack. There were no outposts. There were no, I mean, you're literally the closest island to Japan in the American territories. And you don't have an outpost watching for any incomings. No, that is military 101. I mean, it a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor is an oxymoron. That it's no military, and plus the amount of ships that was at Pearl Harbor and how they were arranged at the time of the attack. No, that's not how military works, especially in that environment. You don't have unarmed ships. You don't have, you, you rotate your assets in and out of maintenance, not all at once. You don't have all your ships basically cleaned out for maintenance on the same day. That that's not how military works. That's that that would be the equivalent of me or Patrick going, you know what? This Friday night, I'm going to clean all my weapons at once. I'm not going to have one operational weapon operations or functioning all this weekend. Just going to take them all apart. No, that's not how it works. That's not how people think. Then, and also the lie. Another part of the lie was the the gradual lie. It was the turning up of the heat of the pot that the American frogs were in. Our government had been infiltrated by the progressive movement prior to Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson was the first progressive president, and it's we have been generationally lied to, where now our idea of freedom looks a whole lot like slavery, where 125 years ago we were much more free than we are now. My God, we are so far from natural rights. We've actually bought into this whole civil rights bullshit, where the government grants us our rights and enforces our rights with civil rights law. No, civil rights laws are just a marketing campaign to legislate other people's freedoms. When there's a civil rights movement, so that black people can shop in a center that wants to only serve whites, love it or hate it, that's called freedom. Like it or not, that's called freedom. If it's if a guy who owns a cake shop doesn't want to make a cake for a homosexual wedding, that's his freedom to not involve his labor in or with another group that he doesn't choose to. You've got to take the good part of freedom and the bad part of freedom. and the free market will work it out. Yes, there are people that don't like other cultures. That's okay, but you cannot legislate their morality. It's it's the equivalent of someone coming into your house and going, Patrick, you know what? You need to live your life in accordance with Sharia law because it's the civil rights of a Muslim to have you respect their laws and apply them to yourself. No, freedom is, and people will give me shit about this, but I don't care because it's truth. It is your God given right to not like other things that other people do or not like other cultures and not involve yourself in other cultures. It isn't white supremacy. It isn't black supremacy. It isn't Jewish supremacy. It isn't Indian supremacy. It's preference. Your preference and civil rights is just completely a lie. It's the federal government trying to inject itself into personal preference. Where if you own a restaurant, you have to serve anybody that walks in. Okay, a child molester, a known child molester, walks in your restaurant, Patrick, wearing a shirt that says, I love little boys. Are you bringing him a nice cold iced tea?
Oh shit, that gun I was just cleaning just dropped, hit the floor, and it fired.
Exactly. No. And that preference, that what word am I looking for? No. MJ 8988. Any business is free to refuse service, but you can't refuse service to someone based on race. Not true. Welcome to freedom. You can discriminate. That is freedom. Now, how long your business is going to last? I don't know. But you have the freedom to discriminate against anybody. That's called natural rights, natural law. Race, it's a right, or whether you think it's morally right or not is irrelevant. You have to value other people's freedom to discriminate. Right. MJ 8988 says, okay, that's not the law of the United States, though. Right. I'm saying the law is wrong. Civil rights law is just a fancy way of granting the federal government the authority to manipulate society through legislation, to socially engineer. It is not the government's job to influence the society. It's the it's the society's job to influence the government. That's the difference. When a government fears the people, there is freedom. When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. That's the difference. That's on Twitter. I had an argument with a black supremacist. He wanted a black state that was only black people. And I said, brother, go for it. And he's like, what? And I go for it. Have a black city, have a black county. I don't care. It's your freedom. And if you get enough other black people to move into an area that reaches the population requirements for a city or county or whatever, and then you guys put up a sign that says no whites allowed, I'm fine with that. I don't care, because it is the community at the local level that should determine the culture of the local level. It's you. Everybody discriminates. Everybody does. Civil rights laws just make you shut up about it. That's it. It does not take away the dislike or the distrust or the quote unquote racism. It just makes people shut up about it. That's all it does. Right. I respect the rights of people to be stupid. If you want to open a restaurant and said whites only, good luck with that economic venture. Right? If you want to open up a restaurant that says black, we only serve black people. Okay. I am one 100% black. Do I qualify? See, you have to let nature and culture evolve naturally, or you get civil war, or you get cultural wars, or you get conflict. You this 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 forced multiculturalism. Multiculturalism will happen naturally. It's happening now through the internet. And the creative destruction part of every economy, which multiculturalism is an economy of cultural norms. It's cultural norms competing with each other to see which one benefits the society the best. Everything's a marketplace. It's you let the best idea win. Even if at that time, that idea may not seem very good, but it works. You know, I've heard so many people, and Patrick, you'll back me up on this. I've heard so many people say St. Louis is such a divided city. Such a divide. It's just, oh, it's horrible. You have the Italians over here. You got Dogtown with the Dutch. You got little China area. You got how you got the African American area up in North St. Louis. It's also divided. Why is it divided? Was there some government legislated, you know, segregation of housing? No. The Italians live near the Italians. The Orientals live near Orientals. The Dutch lived in Dogtown.
Well, that's because
Yeah.
it was the cheapest place to live. That's because it was the cheapest
Yeah.
place to live. But you are right. Sociologically, people look for homogeneity. They look for their own kind.
Yeah.
You can talk about forcing integration, but folks are going to eventually migrate to being with their own kind, whether it has to do with sexuality, whether it has to do with faith, whether it has to do with their culture and the color of their skin. They're going to look for sameness. It's just
Exactly.
it's a path of least resistance.
Look at Soulard. The largest homosexual community in St. Louis lives in Soulard. And me and my wife, we go down there for like Mardi Gras, and they got great restaurants down there. Hell, I've actually been in a couple of gay bars that are just a hoot. I mean, they got good music. They're
normal people.
Oh, they're great people. And I'll tell you what, you want some nice clothes, you go to a resale shop in a gay area. They got some damn nice clothes. And it's people want to be around like-minded people. And that's not bad. That's not a bad thing. People think that multiculturalism is the end all be all. No. Multiculturalism leads to conflict, forced multiculturalism. Because I'll tell you right now, it's in Soulard where the shared culture is not actually based on race, but on sexual preference. You got blacks, you got Asians, you got whites, you got every race of homosexuals down there. It's not a race thing. Multiculturalism is really the societal norms and not really the race of the area. It is maybe the church, maybe the religion, maybe it's the sexual preference. It's multifaceted, and the point is that the freedom to discriminate is freedom. You can like it or not. is irrelevant. Discrimination is part of life. And it's not a negative or a positive. It just is. Like, I don't like black licorice. That don't mean I hate black licorice. It just means I'm not going to buy black licorice. I mean, it's not that I want everyone who likes black licorice, hung up on a cross for being anti-strawberry licorice. I mean, it makes no sense. Discrimination does not equate hatred. It's just preference. And preference leads to happiness. If you don't discriminate, you cannot achieve happiness. So every person watching this, guess what? You're discriminatory. You are one of those hateful, discriminative. What the hell word am I looking for, Patrick?
Discriminatory.
Discriminatory. That's you. You discriminate against coffee. You coffee haters. But you know how you act on your discriminatory feelings? You don't buy coffee. The humanity. We've been lied into this idea that we have to love everything that frickin' exists. That you can't just not agree with somebody, because if you don't agree with them, you're discriminating against them, which means you hate them. That's not how the world works. A black bear that lets a little butterfly fly by and doesn't eat it, but goes out in the stream and swats up a fish and then eats that. It's not that the black bear hates butterflies. It's just that the black bear doesn't want to eat a fucking butterfly. It ain't worth it. And it isn't that it's preference. It's what you're used to. It's your norm. It's your environment. And forced multiculturalism is slavery, because you have to economically enslave one group of society in order to influence another group in society. Welcome to the progressive movement. They use taxation and tax credits and giveaways and grants and all these other little manipulations to socially engineer the populace, when it shouldn't be the government. It's not the government's job to socially engineer shit. It's the society's job to engineer the government. Read the Constitution. Read the Bill of Rights. Read the Declaration of Independence, that when such government, I don't remember the exact words, but you know what I'm trying to say, whenever it no longer reflects the people, that it's the people's obligation and right to dismantle that government and put a government in that reflects the culture of the people. We live under the tyrannical thumb of a progressive government that thinks it's their job to engineer the society. It's not. It's the society's job to implement the government. It's why Nancy Pelosi is such a stupid bitch. Because it's why Joe Biden is such a piece of shit. Because they actually think that it's acceptable to, well, we'll tell you what's in the bill once we pass it. No, bitch, that ain't how this works. You don't tell us shit. We tell you. You're our employee. That paycheck that you cash has a signature on it from the people. That money should be coming from the people, but they've engineered a tax system and they've engineered a central banking system where they've removed the need to raise taxes. They don't need to raise taxes because they know we'd all tell them to fuck off. Now they just print and they raise the debt ceiling so they can print more money so they don't have to go to the people for approval. They're enslaving you with your own currency without even having to tax you because they use the inflation from the Federal Reserve. If the federal government was strictly held to the amount of capital that they brought in through taxation, they'd be that big. Because the American people, nope, wouldn't do it. Hey, we want to go to war. Is that okay? No, it's not. Prove to us that we need to go to war. Did anybody prove to us that we need to go into Iran or Iraq? No. And how did they fund it? Raise the debt ceiling. How have they funded every other war? They raise the debt ceiling. The American people are no longer represented by this government. This government is no longer representing the people. This government is leading us into hell. And we're being drug along, and we're being told that we should feel lucky that we're getting drug along. And don't worry, we won't tax you too much. Why do we have taxation if we've just raised the debt ceiling? Fuck it, cut the taxes and just raise the debt ceiling. Eliminate taxes, just raise the debt ceiling. Same thing. It's just creating money. But the restraints of the government are not there when they just raise the debt ceiling and print more money. No restraint, no economic balance, no societal overseeing of the government. That, my friends, is where we're at. We are slaves, and whether you want to believe it or not, you're a slave. And now we're about to break through this slavery bullshit. And as over the next 4 years, we are going to destroy more government entities than you've ever seen, because they're not helping us. The National Education Association, or whatever the hell it is, the federal education system, get rid of that. That is the biggest piece of shit that was ever created, because all it does is put out the agenda into all the public schools to manipulate and indoctrinate our children. Local schools should reflect local cultures. The people should handle the curriculum for their local schools, not national. Nope. We don't want one culture in America. We don't want one flavor. See, America is not a melting pot. We're a stew. We got meat, we got potatoes, we got onions, we got beans, we got whatever. We don't put them in a blender.
Right.
We don't put them in a blender and make them all blend together into this nice little soup. No. We respect the flavors, and the flavors can, you can have a little bit of meat sauce on a carrot, and it adds to it. It just makes it better. We have been lied to for so long, but it's turning around and the truth is coming. All right, Patrick, I've been ranting for about a half hour here.
Oh, don't cut yourself short. It's been longer than a half hour.
Has it?
But it's been highly, it's been highly entertaining. No, you're absolutely right. I've had a problem with the notion of diversity for a long time. It's plurality. It's what we are. It's what's made America great. This notion that we have to have regulations that control who gets in and who doesn't, who's the guard keeper. It's a graduated form of affirmative action at multiple levels. It's an added complexity because now we're adding gender, we're adding affective disorders become an element in play. It's a clusterfuck, and it's time this gets meted out and resolved. Not in a way to put things in simpler terms, in simpler means of allowing people to gain access. And through plurality, you do that. When you start legislating these things, there's always somebody that gets left behind. There's always somebody who's not allowed into the room just because. But in a plurality situation, everybody's allowed into the room. You just don't have preferential treatment. You're not a protected class.
There should be no protected class.
There shouldn't be, but in some instances there has to be, and I'll go to the ADA one. I'll go to the ADA on that one. I think there are instances where folks who are dealing with disabilities don't have physical access to things that they should have. Curbs that have ramps on them, so that.
Okay. No. That I agree with what you said there, but I still think it should be at the local level.
That's fine. That's fine, but the teeth at the local level should be just as dense and sharp as they are at the federal level. So, because you're going to have to tear some ass in order to get things done.
Well, I say leave it up to the local people, and if they see fit that
Sure.
they want to, I have no problem with communists, and I'll tell you why. If you want to make California completely a communist place, go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that.
But understand that Missouri ain't gonna bail your communist ass out.
No.
That's why socialism and communism always fails. Because as long as there's one place where there's freedom, the people will run to that one place. Hence
right.
America. And that's why the communists and the progressives, they cannot have a free, they cannot let America exist because they know they won't exist long. All right, Patrick, we got to wrap this up, brother.
Yes.
Thank you guys, everyone. Check me out on DLive. Check me out on Patreon. The link is in the description. And I'm sure Twitter has already brought this video down.
I'm gonna let me make an observation. There's a lot of folks that have made it over to DLive. There's 24.
Okay.
And the chat here is the better of any of the platforms. It's just the time delay between when you're speaking on StreamYard and when we get it over here. I have it on both, but my DLive is muted. So
okay.
Yeah. And this is going on Patreon today?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So tomorrow I will, now that I know exactly what I need to launch when, now like Patreon, they'll all actually be synced up relatively close to each other.
Okay.
So everyone have a great day, and happy brothers and sisters. Fear not, because there's a higher power in charge here. Patrick, love you, brother.
Love you.
And I will see you tomorrow.
All right. Adios.
All right, bye-bye.